temporary leader are announced. Legal concerns plague the EU's handling of the migrant crisis as Greece struggles to deal with the spike in asylum applications.
Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff is one step closer to a trial for corruption, increasing the likelihood of impeachment.
The Dutch government may have to reconsider ratifying a treaty on closer European Union ties with Ukraine after voters rejected a partnership deal in a non-binding referendum. Unofficial results indicate 64% voted no. The turnout appears to have only just passed the required 30% to validate the result.
The ratification cannot proceed as was expected before. So we have to take a step-by-step approach. We have now to talk within the cabinet, with the parliament, with our European partners, also with the Ukraine, to see what the consequences of this decision might be.
The vote, launched by anti-EU forces, is being seen as a test of the strength of Eurosceptics, such as Freedom Party leader Geert Wilders, who quickly turned to social media to express what he saw would be the consequences of such a result. The political trade and defence treaty with Ukraine is already provisionally in place, but has to be ratified by all 28 European Union member states for it to have full legal force. The Netherlands is the only country that has not done so.
There's consternation in Kiev that closer ties with the EU have been dealt a blow by Dutch voters. But for those in the know in Ukraine, dismay is mixed with hope that this is not the end of the story. This is one of the biggest disappointments, perhaps the biggest disappointment in recent years, says this political analyst. But he adds that the Netherlands and Ukraine will now seek a way of preserving the partnership deal, while at the same time making it clear that the European Union is still listening to the views of ordinary people. I'm very sad, this woman told Euronews in the Ukrainian capital, because politics has got in the way of our country's destiny. Perhaps my future, my family and my country will be at risk because of this. But on a visit to Japan, Ukraine's president seemed far from discouraged, downplaying the importance of the referendum.
Under any circumstances, we continue to implement the association agreement with the European Union, including deep and comprehensive free trade agreement, and Ukraine will continue our movement to the European Union.
And for Petro Poroshenko, the Dutch no vote is above all aimed at the EU, with those behind the referendum not taking a shot at the Ukraine treaty, but the unity of Europe.
The fallout from the Panama Papers has left Iceland with a new Prime Minister and the prospect of snap elections. Fisheries and Agriculture Minister Sigurður Johannsson has been chosen to lead the country after his predecessor was forced to step down, mired in scandal. The Icelandic Premier is the first head to roll after a leak of documents uncovered a murky world of offshore finances. Sigmundur David Gunnlaugsson stepped aside after documents from Panamanian law firm Mossack Fonseca revealed his wife owned a company with claims on the island's collapsed banks. He insists he sold his stake in the company and denies any wrongdoing. But the news sparked widespread protests. Opposition parties have agreed to an autumn election. Recent polls show that the scandal has boosted the Pirate Party's position, with almost half of the population pledging support to the protest group.
Swiss police have raided the offices of European football's governing body, UEFA. The move comes in the wake of the Panama Papers leak. The documents mention current FIFA president Gianni Infantino. While working for UEFA as Director of Legal Services, Infantino co-signed a TV rights deal with an Argentine company called Cross Trading, which then sold them on at a huge profit to Ecuadorian TV broadcaster Teleamazons. Cross Trading is owned by Hugo Jinkis and his son Mariano, both under house arrest in Argentina and both indicted by the US as part of an alleged multi-million-dollar fraud. There's no evidence to suggest UEFA, Infantino and Teleamazons did anything wrong. In a further blow, Uruguayan lawyer Juan Pedro Damiani has resigned as a FIFA ethics judge after his legal firm has been linked to several offshore companies.
For the approximately 51,000 migrants and refugees still stranded on Greek islands, the future is uncertain. With an EU deal rushed into action to stem the flow of migrants arriving on Greek islands from Turkey, the bloc is playing legal catch-up. On Wednesday, the European Commission announced a proposed reform of its common asylum system in a bid to help countries on the front line.
The problem we need to fix is that the system relies largely on where a person first arrives at the EU to decide which member state should handle an asylum claim. This is neither fair nor sustainable given the reality of the volumes of people, which has put a huge burden on just a very few number of member states.
Any reform of the system is likely to be a long time in the making. Meanwhile, the EU-Turkey deal to deport migrants back across the Aegean has led to a spike in asylum applications in Greece, and rights groups fear that many potential refugees may be sent back in error.
A French law passed in the country's parliament on Wednesday, which criminalises the clients of prostitutes rather than sex workers, has divided public opinion. Under the new legislation, anyone caught purchasing sex will be fined €1,500. Some feminist groups who have been pushing for the abolition of prostitution say the law will help exploited women. Prostitutes will no longer be seen as criminals. When they're abused, they can file a complaint in a police station, which they did not dare do before. The power relationship with their clients will be completely different, as they will be in a position of strength, such as, I'm not guilty, but you. What you're doing is against the law. But opponents warned that cracking down on clients could push sex workers further underground and into vulnerable situations with less protection. If customers are penalised, they will be scared. The girls will have to hide in order to practice their trade, which is legal. And as the one who might get into legal trouble, the customer will be able to impose his choices, including unprotected sex. France's move follows that of Iceland and Norway. Last year, Northern Ireland introduced legislation to make it the only part of the UK where people can be convicted of paying for sex.
Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff is one step closer to being put on trial for corruption following a report by Congressman João Arentus. His statement to the lower house committee investigating the leader increases the likelihood she will be impeached. The 65-member body will vote on the findings of the report on Monday. I consider there's serious evidence of personal and willful conduct by the President of the Republic, which undermines the federal institution. This preliminary hearing reveals severities sufficient enough for authorizing the impeachment process. Brazil's first female president is accused of manipulating government funds to boost her 2014 bid for re-election. Arentus claims to have found evidence she bypassed certain fiscal responsibility rules. Rousseff denies any wrongdoing and maintains she will not step down.
22 years ago, on April the 7th, Rwanda's ethnic Hutu militia, armed with machetes, began slaughtering minority Tutsis. More than 800,000 people were systematically murdered in 100 days, including Hutus who refused to join in the killing.
Genocide doesn't happen overnight. Genocide is a process. It takes time, it requires resources, planning, and we do know that genocide is always preceded by serious violations of human rights. We need to invest more to remind the leaders of their role in managing diversity in the most constructive manner.
In 2015, Rwanda's Special Genocide Court held its last hearings, but despite dozens of convictions, there are still many people who've escaped justice, and a most wanted list has been issued. But on today's anniversary, the emphasis is more on the need to learn the lessons of the past. American country music legend Merle Haggard has died at the age of 79. He was considered one of the most influential figures in the genre, with such hits as Okie from Muskogee.